各位好，歡迎收睇今日9月8號嘅第二節新聞室短短說。今集咧係好特別嘅，因為咧而家國會就正係辯論緊咧喺工黨提出嘅呢個移民政策白皮書，咁就將呢一個 skilled workers 嘅個 ILR 咧，即係永久居留，就係延長到10+1。咁至於 BNO Visa 會唔會受影響咧？其實係冇人知道嘅。咁啊喺呢個petition 呢個聯署裏邊咧，在英港人已經有超過10萬人聯署啦。咁而今日咧就正喺國會嘅 Westminster Hall 度就辯論呢個問題。咁而家國會入邊就係正係做緊呢個辯論。咁啊，而家現場嘅畫面咧就係透過 YouTube 喺國會嘅嗰個 Live 嗰度傳出嚟。咁而啱啱有一個 MP 就提到一點嘅，就話 BNO Visa 咧就係為咗營救拯救喺國安法之下嘅香港人，有好多香港人咧係嚟到英國生活。咁而5年嘅 ILR 咧係好重要嘅，否則小朋友唔能夠獲得 home free。咁啊亦都話同好多家庭傾過咧，係有經濟原因。而喺申請2021年申請呢個 BNO 簽證嘅時候咧，係講緊5+1，而延長咧係並不合適，亦都同前政府咧，即係保守黨政府時候嘅政策係唔一致嘅。咁我哋就繼續一路聽呢個直播，而我咧就會喺後邊咧就係整合翻唔同嘅啲消息一啲意見咁樣嘅。
And deny children who have grown up here their right to home fee tuition.
咁啱啱嗰個 MP 咧就話，其實咧係有好多香港人咧係受到威脅啦，包括就係懸紅通緝嘅問題。咁亦都話有好多人其實受到呢個經濟嘅影響，而同時間咧其實香港人係唔想成為公帑嘅負擔。咁啊，亦都話香港好多追求自由嘅人咧，其實已經係受到呢個牢獄之苦啦，亦都希望政府咧係可以釐清呢個政策嘅。
I'm also not convinced that the exploitation had any effect on the current levels of migration in this country. And secondly, the blanket policy, regardless of circumstance, contribution and needs, may also have significant and adverse qualities impacts I hope the government will And I'd encourage the government to think carefully and deeply about the implications of this decision on a variety of contexts, and particularly vulnerable migrants such as children and the elderly. One of my constituents wrote to me just today to raise an issue of the impact on child migrants and accessibility of university education. Without ILR, prospective students would have to pay full international fees, which are extortionate. And if this change comes to place, a child moving to this country at 10 years old who graduates having completed secondary school education throughout their time in the UK would not qualify at 10 years old who graduates having completed secondary school education throughout their time in the UK, delay their education or potentially put off completely. The individual who contacted me, I actually happened to also meet last week with her mother, who's a neonatal care nurse in an hospital. Her mother and father have always worked, paid taxes in the UK, contributed, active in the community. And this is the case for so many of my constituents who now call the UK home and keep our public services running. As we seek to grow our economy, is it really those who want to study engineering, maths, law, and those who want to work or study in the NHS to set up a business who we wish to see restricted and denies opportunities to get educated, to put down longer-term roots, and to contribute further to our nation's future? I'd implore the government to reflect deeply on the ILR changes and not to adopt a blanket approach. Instead, to create a system which encourages contribution, encourages community activity, encourages people to work in our public services, to support education and skills being added to our communities, not taken away. I'd also concur and agree with colleagues here today who've talked about our responsibilities to BNO visa holders. I'm very proud to represent many BNO visa holders in Hillingdon, and in particular Uxbridge and South Rice at the seat I represent. One told me recently that this was a key pathway and crucial for their safety and providing hope to many of us in the community following the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law, which has severely undermined our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, protest, and a free press. Many again have made the UK their home, not to an easy choice to make, but due to life-changing decisions and circumstances. And we're hoping that after 5 years of residence, meeting the quite strenuous requirements around English requirements, around the life in the UK test, they would have the chance to apply for a definite leave to remain and 1 year later citizenship. But I'd encourage the Minister to carefully consider the cases of those with BNO visas. So Jeremy, we can and we must reduce migration levels to a sustainable level. We can restore public confidence and ensure that the system is managed well, but we can also ensure that the system is fair, that it is just, that it encourages migration that works for our country, and a system that works for people who come here and call our country home. Many of my constituents at the moment are deeply worried about the narrative that's taking place in Hillingdon and also nationally, which is seeking to divide communities to other members of our community. And I think at this time particularly, we must stand together, we must celebrate our diversity and encourage people to reflect on the importance of difference to a successful and sustainable economy, society and country. And I hope as we reform our migration system, we won't forget this. We'll design reforms that work for our country, but also work for those who call our country home. Thank you.
We do. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak in today's debate and to stand alongside colleagues in defence of a promise that we made.
啱啱嘅 MP 咧就提到咧就話，其實希望咧政府可以重新去再思考呢個 ILR 嘅政策啦，而香港實施嘅呢個國安法咧，的確係嚴重破壞咗香港人嘅自由，包括就係新聞自由。咁所以咧，希望政府能夠維持到 BNO Visa 嘅5+1啦，英語而家嘅嗰個要求啦，以及就係 Pass Life in the UK Test 嘅。咁同時亦都希望改革以及令到英國嘅各種系統咧係能夠持續落去。
In Hong Kong, a law that essentially criminalised dissent against the Chinese Communist Party. And this visa is a lifeline, rooted in the special and enduring ties between our two nations. And it also offered a clear pathway, 5 years to indefinite leave to remain, then citizenship. I'm
grateful to the honourable gentleman giving me way, and like him, I've significant Hong Kong population in my constituency of Solihull, Westminster. There's about 4,500 across the borough. And does he agree with me? They had a legitimate expectation that the rules of the game wouldn't be changed partway through, and to do so would damage the social contract we as a state have had with these people.
He makes an excellent point. I think it's a moral duty for our country to maintain its promise to those people. As I was saying, to now consider extending that to 10 years would be a betrayal of trust. And this change will have damaging consequences. Young Hong Kongers would face a decade-long wait to access university at home fee rates. Families would be locked out of £3 billion worth of retirement savings, unable to access at the moment due to the restrictions placed in Hong Kong. Many would be immobilised, unable to travel safely without risking contact with Chinese consulates, and children born here would have to wait until the age of 11 to gain a passport. And all of this would play directly into the hands of the Chinese government, who have long claimed that BNO holders misplaced their trust in Britain. Changing the rules now would hand them a huge propaganda victory. Now, we've had constituents on BNO visas write to me describing how the limbo of wait for indefinite leave to remain makes it difficult to continue their education or apply for the jobs that they want. Others have shared how they are being harassed or surveyed, even here in the UK, simply for speaking out or being politically active. And this is about safety. The Hong Kong diaspora in the UK faces transnational repression, a term that's no longer abstract. In recent months, we've seen surveillance and intimidation of activists, bounties placed on UK residents, physical attacks, including the assault of a protester at the Manchester consulate, and attempts to break into the homes of exiled Hong Kongers. These are no longer isolated incidents. They are part of a systemic campaign, and the UK must respond with clarity and courage. In our borough of Sutton, I've heard personal stories of fear, resilience, and hope. Hong Kongers have opened businesses, joined our schools, and enriched our community. We must not, bureaucracy or short-term politics, undermine the commitment that was made in good faith. We must stand by Hong Kongers, guarantee their rights, and secure their futures in the way that we promised.
James Thatch.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship today and to speak as the Member of Parliament for Rushcliffe, which is proudly home to over 2,000 Hong Kongers.
啱啱嘅 MP 咧提到就係 BNO Visa 咧係救生艇嚟嘅，而5年嘅 ILR 咧其實係好重要，即係5+1，咁亦都係英國政府嘅道德責任。而而家去即係工黨政府去提出去延至10年咧，係並不公義嘅。而如果係咁嘅話咧，年輕人係會面對一個貴嘅學費啦。同時間亦都唔能夠再相信英國嘅系統、英國嘅政府，而延長去到10+1嘅話咧，係會令到年輕人嘅學業同埋工作都受影響。而同時間，香港人嘅安全亦都需要關注啦。香港人喺英國係受到恐嚇啦，而懸紅通緝亦都喺英國發生，面對呢個威脅啦。所以就話政府係唔能夠再耍官腔、再架床疊屋，而係要承擔呢個歷史嘅責任。咁而另外一個 MP 都提到就話，其實香港人咧喺 Birmingham 嗰邊嘅 Solihull 係佔好多，亦都有反映咗好多嘅意見。
And their relatives who are fleeing repression in a former British territory where rule of law and human rights have been ruthlessly eroded. That is why there has been rare, enduring, cross-party support for this scheme since day one, and why any attempt to move the goalpost now would cut against the very reason that the route exists. Hong Kongers agreed with their families on the explicit promise of 5 years to indefinite leave to remain, plus 1 year to citizenship pathway. To lengthen the timeline mid-journey would be seen as a breach of trust. It would shake confidence in the UK's credibility far beyond the BNO community. The numbers tell their own story. Almost 200,000 BNO Hong Kongers now live in the UK. Crucially, the overwhelming majority came in the first 2 years after launch, and BNO now grants now account for about 1% of total visas. We must appreciate that today's debate isn't about headline immigration numbers, but about the welfare of a community that is already here. In my constituency of Rushcliffe, as I said earlier, over 2,000 Hong Kongers are currently on their 5-year pathway to ILR. The impact will be on them. Shifting the rules, as has already been mentioned, will hand Beijing and their regime in Hong Kong a propaganda gift. You trusted Britain, yet Britain broke the deal. We cannot allow that narrative to stand, which is why the government must keep its promises. Extending settlement to 10 years would force a decade-long wait for home fee status for BNO students, pricing out the vast majority of BNOs currently studying for their A-levels at schools in my constituency from being able to start university until they're in their mid-20s. It would delay access to an estimated £3 billion in Hong Kong pension savings that can only be released once ILR is granted. This is £3 billion. I won't.
Very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. He's making an excellent case around what those with BNO visas are being put through by this white paper and the proposed legislation. In Dartford, I've been contacted by a very large number of people on skilled visas who are in a very similar situation. Would he agree with me that whatever the situation of people either on BNO or skilled visas, whatever may happen in the future with this legislation, that people who've come to the UK to contribute to our economy and society, that the least we should offer them is clarity on what they can expect from us, as well as fairness in not changing the terms on which they were accepted here in the first place?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and he's absolutely right. And I think the consensus here today is that that uncertainty and the idea of moving goalposts is something that we need to determine whether we support as a country. And I sincerely hope the Minister is listening about the sentiment in the room. Going back to BNOs, because many BNOs lack consular protection and cannot safely renew travel documents, a longer route would also track families separated, unable to travel for study, unable to travel for work, and unable to see relatives abroad. To extend the pathway to 10 years would not be an act of administrative tidying, rather it would be a material downgrading of hundreds of thousands of British Hong Kongers' lives across the UK. Meanwhile, the community is contributing civically and economically. Hong Kongers are working, studying, volunteering, starting businesses, even serving in local government as councillors. They are precisely the neighbours and colleagues we want to keep, that my constituents in Rushcliffe want to keep, and many of those are also concerned about some of the broader immigration issues that have been referenced. The 5-year route was designed so they could put down roots quickly and securely. Extending the clock would defer integration, depress opportunity, and waste potential. And therefore, to close, I echo the words of the tens of thousands of UK Hong Kongers who will be watching this debate at home. I want to keep standing with Hong Kong. I want to keep our promise to Hong Kongers. I want to keep the 5-year route. That is how we honour our word. We support a thriving community that has so much to offer to our nation, and it's a way that we can show the world that when Britain gives its word, it will keep it.
Before I call the next speaker, just a gentle reminder, 4 minutes is what we're aiming for. I won't impose a formal time limit unless I have to, but if you could keep close to 4 minutes, that would help. Chris Curtis.
Your chairmanship, and I won't speak for too long, so I hopefully bring down.
啱啱 MP 提到啦，就話香港係前英國嘅殖民地啦，本身係一個有法治嘅土地，但係而家咧香港人係有20萬人係在英國生活，咁而佢自己嘅選區咧係有2000人準備係嚟到5年 ILR 噶啦。如果而家呢刻要延長嘅話咧，對於佢哋有好大影響。而同時間，中國係違反中英聯合聲明，所以英國係需要負責。而如果延長到10年嘅話咧，10年 ILR 嘅話咧，學生同埋家庭將會需要承擔高昂嘅學費，而亦都有好多 BNO 人咧係冇任何嘅保障啦，亦都唔能夠係去到海外見到親人。咁亦都提到香港人咧喺英國嘅時候貢獻好多啦，佢哋嘅選區喺唔同嘅地方嘅 council 裏邊，咁亦都好多公司咧係希望要香港人嘅，咁所以佢就希望咧繼續去支持香港人啦，去希望呢個承諾能夠繼續啦，繼續5+1啦。而最後一句就話，當英國講出佢嘅承諾嘅時候，就需要履行佢嘅承諾。 因為中間有個 MP 就打斷咗啦，就話希望政府係必須要提供清晰嘅指引，係唔會改變任何 BNO 簽證嘅任何條款嘅。
To our strength as an economic powerhouse within the UK should not go unseen by the minister and this government. And the reality is we made them a promise and we should keep it.
I completely agree with the comments just made there. Diversity is at the heart of Milton Keynes, and we're a proud city that shows how people from many backgrounds can come together to enrich and strengthen our community. And we've seen firsthand in our city how the many people who have come to our city from Hong Kong have added to our local economy. And this government, our previous government and this government made a deal. We made a commitment that was in keeping with our human rights commitments and our commitment to do the right thing. And it is I think, important that we keep to that commitment. Now, most people, I think, I welcome the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary's commitment to ensuring that those who come to Britain are able to integrate and contribute to our society, not simply to fill up gaps left by uncertainty and investment and skills and training, but changing the situation, changing the deal for the BNO visas is not the way of doing that. Now, I don't think that the government intentionally aimed to create this uncertainty for people who came here, but unfortunately that uncertainty has now been created, and we see that in the inboxes of everybody sitting around this room. So I hope today the Minister will be able to clarify the situation and be able to give certainty that those who came here seeking safety, freedom and opportunity know that this government still stands with them, will not change the rules, and that 5-year journey that was committed by the previous government will remain in place even after the immigration white paper goes through. Thank you.
Honourable gentleman is as good as his word. Sarah Hall.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Over recent years, many Hong Kong families made brave decisions to uproot their lives and move halfway around the world to Britain. They came here on the strength of our word, a clear promise that if they held BNO status, they would have a route to settle and be able to build a future. In Warrington South, I've had more than 2,400 residents sign this petition, the highest number anywhere in the country. That tells me just how deeply this issue matters to the people I represent. It matters because those arriving from Hong Kong are no longer just headlines or statistics. They are our neighbours. They are parents at the school gate, new business owners on our high streets, and young people starting out in education and work. I think of Rose and Wilson, who moved to Great Sankey to give their children a simpler and less pressured life. Or Renata, who set up a play cafe near Bridgefoot. Or Cheryl, who started a bakery on Buttermarket Street. Or Taki and the wonderful team at Warrington Hong Kongers, who have created a supportive resource for Warrington Hong Kongers arriving locally. And finally, Oscar, a young man who spent time in my office on work experience, showing that this new generation are already part of the fabric of Warrington. They are here because Britain offered sanctuary when freedoms in Hong Kong were stripped away. We responded with the BNO visa route because it was the right thing to do. To row back now or to create uncertainty about people's status would not just harm families who have already sold their homes, invested their savings and enrolled their children in British schools. It would damage Britain's credibility. Our word must mean something. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Fairness, yes.
I thank the Honourable friend for giving way. Her stories remind me of stories that I hear in Reading, in my constituency of Early and Woodley, such as Angie, who's a nursing associate in the NHS. Angie's daughter wishes to study paramedical science and also work in the NHS, but for that to happen, she needs a route to settlement in order to pay home student fees. Does my honourable friend agree with me that families like Angie's need certainty and stability from the Minister and from our government?
I absolutely agree with my honourable friend, thank you. Fairness and the rule of law cut both ways. Families played by the rules, paid the fees and came here legally. They have every right to expect that the path to settlement and citizenship remains exactly as set out. In Warrington, I see every day how Hong Kongers contribute to our economy, our schools and our community life. They came because they believe in the same values we do: fairness, freedom, dignity and democracy. I know colleagues across the House share a cross-party pride in the BNO scheme. It said something good about who we are and what we are willing to stand up for. Let's not unpick that. Let's fix what needs fixing in our border system without unravelling a promise that families have bet their lives on. I see the contribution Hong Kongers make every day to Warrington South. What they need now is reassurance and not uncertainty. We must keep the 5+1 group intact for Hong Kongers, and in doing so, show that Britain is a country whose promises can be trusted and whose government stands by those who put their faith in us.
啱啱嘅 MP 咧，包括就係 Milton Keynes 嘅MP 咧，亦都提到係唔能夠有任何喺 BNO 簽證上面嘅改變。咁另外就係話英國咧係要履行人權承諾，改變 BNO 簽證咧並唔係一個應該嘅做法。咁啊喺 Warrington South 嘅一個 MP 就提到啦，好多香港家庭咧去將佢哋嘅生活去搬到去英國，去建設佢哋嘅未來。咁而淨係喺 Warrington South 咧有400人簽署，而香港人嚟到英國生活咧，已經唔再係一個 headlines 咁簡單。咁佢提到就係香港人咧喺英國嘅貢獻啦，同埋生活啦，而呢一代咧將會係 Warrington 嘅一份子。維持 BNO Visa 咧嗰個唔同嘅嗰個條件咧係應該嘅，否則係只會 downgrade 英國嘅誠信嘅啫。佢又見到香港人對於經濟啦同埋教育嘅貢獻，而香港人需要嘅係被保證佢哋嘅5+1嘅途徑，顯示英國係一個可信嘅國家。
Said 10 years is an extraordinarily long time to live on a visa without the security of citizenship, the right to vote, or the ability to fully settle and plan our futures in the UK. The government hasn't yet confirmed whether people already in the immigration routes affected will have to wait longer for settlement, as opposed to the change only applying to those arriving after the implementation date, although the White Paper's annex does suggest that the change will affect those already here. Many MPs, including myself, have been asking questions on this issue, but the responses so far from written parliamentary questions have said it will be addressed as part of the consultation process, but without giving that timeline. An idea of that timeline and the parameters of the consultation will be extremely helpful to give my worried constituents some sort of idea on how long they have to plan for their future and what representations they can make. For now, they are, as one constituent wrote, trusting the UK's commitment to fairness and stability for migrants who invest their lives here.
Juliet Campbell.
And it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship today. I thank the Pensions Committee for securing this debate today, and also to my honourable friend from South Norfolk for his opening remarks. I rise today to speak in support of retaining the 5-year pathway to ILR for BNO visa holders. My constituency of Broxtowe is home to over 2,500 BNO visa holders. Many of them have written to me and raised their concerns. I want to say today that our community has been culturally and socially enriched by having our Hong Kong residents, and they continue to make a valuable contribution to society. Research shows that 59% of BNO visa holders have a degree or a postgraduate degree. However, despite their skills and eagerness to settle in the UK, they face challenges to fully integrate, to settle, and feel secure here in the UK. Happy to give way.
I wondered if you agree with me on that point. That employers have raised with me that increasing the qualifying period will actually make the UK less attractive to international talent, and that is particularly important for science and research in our universities.
I thank my honourable friend for her contribution, and absolutely I agree that it has an impact on how we can employ people within our communities. A report by the British Future organisation found that only about half of those people of working age are currently employed, and 47% of those working say that their current job status doesn't match their skills or qualifications. We know that this creates barriers to achieving full potential and impacts on individuals' self-esteem. On top of these challenges, BNO visa holders are facing heightened anxiety and uncertainty following the proposed changes in the immigration white paper. So while the government's proposals to regulate immigration systems is a good step forward, some of the proposed changes have led to the reduction of trust that was placed in the government by those from Hong Kong. My residents in Broxtowe acted in good faith and took the government at its word that they would have indefinite leave to remain after 5 years as part of their commitment to Hong Kongers who wanted to come to the UK. Extending the pathway from 5 to 10 years for indefinite leave to remain means that many are unable to access their retirement savings funds, which creates financial insecurity for many. And without ILR, my Hong Kong residents in Broxtowe cannot qualify for home fee status at UK universities in main academic opportunities. Delayed ILR will also lead to delays in acquiring citizenship, which will impact on the ability or the eligibility for consular protection, emergency foreign assistance, and could leave those affected at risk of transnational repression. I urge the government to retain the 5-year pathway for BNO visa holders who move to this country and move to the UK on that promise. It is fair and it is the right thing to do.
Yeah. Bangkok. The debate. I understand why the government is proposing to extend the qualifying period for indefinite leave to remain. I think we all recognise that immigration numbers are high, and this is a complex challenge. And it's a complex challenge.
頭先 MP 咧就係 South Norfolk， 咁佢亦都提到係5年 ILR 嘅問題啦，就話香港人咧其實對於佢嘅社區嘅貢獻好大嘅，亦都有 59% 嘅香港人咧係有呢個大學學歷、大學學士學歷。咁啊，但係由於 BNO visa holders 係喺白皮書之下咧係有好多嘅不確定啦，咁而對政府嘅誠信咧係會有影響。延長到10年 ILR 嘅話咧，只會令到好多人嘅財政負擔唔到啦，而退休人士嘅嗰個資金亦都會被蠶食啦。咁同時間喺跨境鎮壓嘅背景之下咧，係有必要維持呢個5+1嘅。咁另外之前有個 MP 就提到就話政府咧係仲未係確定到究竟白皮書嘅政策嘅細節係點樣啦，所以希望政府能夠盡快係一個 timetable 一個時間表啦，同時間 consultation 諮詢咧係必須同埋有幫助嘅。頭先觀眾提到就話其實都估唔到今次個 debate 咧係有咁多MP 係關注呢個香港人嘅情況 BNO visa holders 嘅情況。咁因為本身呢個 debate 咧係牽涉到除咗 BNO visa holders 之外咧，仲有係 skilled workers 嘅。
My constituency of Chelsea and Fulham have got in touch with me, and these are skilled workers, and their overwhelming feeling is simply being blindsided. They came to the UK in good faith, they followed the rules, and now they're being told that these rules might change just before they become eligible to settle. And they also find it destabilising that almost 4 months since the publication of the white paper, the government still hasn't given clear guidance on when the rules will come into effect, who will be affected, how it will work. And one couple told me how they moved to the United States in 2020, both work for global firms, both pay the top rate of tax, and they believed rightly that in April 2026, just down the road, they could apply for settlement. Now, they write to me, the rug has been pulled from beneath us. Their plans are suddenly on indefinite pause. And similarly, we have a young scientist in my constituency. She studied in the UK, works in clinical research, she's paid her international student fees, paid taxes, invested her savings here, and now she has no certainty still about her future. And then in my constituency, there's a local NHS speech therapist and her husband, a data scientist. They're expecting their first child. They told me that even if they're not caught out by the changes now, they have no faith, given the way this has been handled, that the system won't be changed again in the future. So, Jeremy, people can't plan their lives without basic certainty. So I'm hoping that the Minister today will be able to provide my residents with the clarity they need and tell us when the government plans to launch the consultation it promised. And the previous Home Secretary said that there is plenty of opportunity for people to comment on and consider the details of the proposals I hope this will still be the case, and perhaps you can reassure us of that. And also, I'd like to understand whether the consultation will contain a clear and detailed definition of what the White Paper refers to as points-based contributions to the UK economy and society. Who exactly will be eligible for a shorter pathway to indefinite leave to remain? Today, so many of my residents are literally counting the days until they become eligible for settlement. They deserve decent treatment, not 5 more years of waiting. So I look forward to the Minister's responses and to being able to offer my residents the much needed reassurance to which I think we'll all agree they're entitled. Ms. Murray.
I draw the Chamber's attention to my declaration of interest and the support my office receives from RAM. I want to make a couple of points today, but I just want to pick up on the point that all honourable members have made, which is to recognise the enormous contribution that both these groups of migrants have made to British society, and nowhere is that more true than in my constituency of Edinburgh East and Musselburgh. As we're talking about indefinite leave to remain, I think it's important that we recognise that in this country, in the British immigration system, we don't really draw a distinction between indefinite leave to remain and citizenship. Almost all the main rights of migrants are accessed at the stage of indefinite leave to remain. But citizenship is important. Madeleine Albright was first a refugee in the UK before she was a refugee in America, and she commented that when she came to Britain, people said, "You're a refugee, you're welcome here, how long till you leave?" But in America they said, "You're a refugee, you're welcome here, how long till you become a citizen?" And I think it's important that we reflect on whether the government should be agnostic about whether someone actually takes that step and becomes a citizenship, or is it becomes a citizen, or is it something we should incentivise and make meaningful? And I say that as well. One second point I would make is not only is the government agnostic on whether migrants become citizenship or stay with indefinite leave to remain, but it is impassive and uninterested, and this is an inherited system that we have, it is impassive and uninterested in the path that migrants take to get there. Now, some migrants make enormous contributions to our countries. They volunteer, they stand up for their communities, they pay taxes, they work hard, they follow the rules. Let's be honest, some don't. But the system is not very strenuous for them in distinguishing between them. As long as they wait long enough, pay a fee, and pass the Life in the UK test, which is pretty ridiculously bad, then they get ILR. We have precious few levers to influence behaviour, precious few opportunities to foster social cohesion and integration. Shouldn't we be thinking more creatively about that? Now, if we're going to have a distinction between indefinite leave to remain and citizenship, if the pathway is going to extend from 5 to 10 years, can't the government think more creatively about how we build a migration system that works for migrants and for the communities where they settle? A third point I would like to make is that the immigration system has to be realistic. About a couple of years ago, under the Conservative government, net migration came up at almost 1 million a year. What that means is that there's a big group of people who will soon become eligible for indefinite leave to remain. That means they become eligible for benefits and for social housing. Now, I hope in her remarks at the end of this debate, the Shadow Minister will accept responsibility and indeed apologise for the complete lack of grip that the Conservatives left on the immigration system. But we have to be realistic that there is a large group of people who will become eligible for benefits and social housing that is not actually currently available because we've not built it yet. Now, we have to address public concerns about immigration. People who support immigration understand that. So we need to be thinking more creatively about how the immigration system works. If we don't give people indefinite leave to remain, that means they don't become eligible for benefits. If we extend that period, that happens too. But can we think more creatively? And will the Minister look at taking steps to address some of the points that have been raised here today? For example, access to pensions, home fee status, difficulty travelling. These are things that can be addressed with those two groups, while still taking account of the reality of the system that we inherited from the Conservatives. My argument, therefore, is, if there is no substantive distinction between citizenship and indefinite leave to remain, if the challenge is that a large number of immigrants will become eligible for benefits and housing when they get indefinite leave to remain, if there is no mechanism to account for the contribution people make or to incentivise their integration into our communities, if the system is blunt, uncreative, impassive and rigid, and if we want people to actually take that step of becoming one of us and becoming a British citizen, then surely reform both of indefinite leave to remain and of citizenship is needed. Finally, I would just like to recognise the enormous contributions of both those unskilled worker visas and British nationals overseas. I have a contention with the premise of this petition. Its implications for fairness and perceptions of fairness that some groups would get a carve out based on the route on which they entered and not what they have done when they are here from the proposals. My view is that the system should look at the contributions migrants have made in the UK and not the visa that they came in on. So I asked the Minister if he could look with clarity, with the proper consultation, but with creativity and with a view to a migrant's contribution to the UK as we see the rollout of these proposals. Thank you.
Rebecca Lombay.
嗱，剛才 Chelsea and Fulham 嘅工黨 MP Ben Coleman 咧，就提到其實喺約翰遜政府嘅時候就開咗呢一個即係低技術勞工嘅正移民啦嚇。咁而嚟到英國之後咧，政府就推出呢一個 White Paper 啱啱嘅重置移民系統白皮書，但係4個月之後咧都係冇任何嘅解釋，冇任何嘅細節。冇講邊啲人係受影響嚇，有啲乜嘢影響，亦都唔知道呢個 system 咧係有乜嘢改變，咁亦都唔知道點樣去幫助重置移民系統啦。咁佢就話而家有好多同移民咧，即係好多移民嚟到工作嘅一啲科學家咧，其實感到即係冇任何未來啊。咁亦都喺一個不明朗嘅情況之下，大家都唔知應該點樣去規劃人生，係促請政府咧盡快講清楚，盡快回應嘅。咁至於頭先嘅愛丁堡 Edinburgh 嘅一個 MP 咧，就提到其實入籍 citizenship 係好重要，因為佢哋嚟到英國其實個貢獻好大啦，做義工亦都為佢哋嘅 community 發聲啦，貢獻好多啦。咁而延長10年呢樣嘢咧，係必須要作出一個嚴正嘅諮詢嘅。咁暫時debate 咧都去翻針對 skilled worker 嗰邊嚇，咁而家紫色衫嘅 MP 咧，係都提到就係呢個技術勞工啦，嚟到英國工作啦，去交稅啦，去做義工啦等等。
Skilled migrants already working here on the 5-year skilled worker visa pathway to ILR. And this is causing anxiety to workers and businesses alike. So again, can the Minister reassure these workers today and confirm that there will be no attempt to make retrospective changes? Now, social care is another sector which would collapse without the support of skilled migrant labour, but it's a sector which has endemic low pay and exploitation. I've heard first-hand harrowing stories from workers who were brought here on skilled worker visas and have been threatened, exploited and frequently underpaid or not paid at all. But because they're reliant on visa support from their employer, they're often forced to keep silent about these abuses or face having their visa removed. So to protect them, in addition to the retention of the 5-year route to ILR and a commitment not to apply retrospective changes, can I also ask the Minister to consider sector-wide visa schemes in social care, enabling migrant workers to challenge bad employees without the threat of dismissal and removal? And indeed, this also extends beyond social care. There must also be greater protection for migrant workers in all sectors from exploitation and strengthening access to trade union rights. Now, finally, the second group of constituents that are most affected in Salford who've contacted me in great fear are those within the Hong Kong community. Salford's home to one of the largest Hong Konger communities in the UK, and I was proud to attend their community awards recently, which awarded members of the community for their efforts in doing good for the city of Salford, from litter picks to supporting those most in need. It was clear that all of these people were dedicated to giving back to the society and economy that embraced them. Many came as part of the BNO visa scheme set up in recognition of the UK's historic and moral commitments to the people of Hong Kong. Many were British citizens prior to 1997, and they maintained British nationality via the BNO passport. So the fear that is caused within this community, I'm sure the Minister will agree, is unnecessary. And I hope that today he can finally provide reassurance that the BNO visa scheme will be exempt from the changes proposed. And I hope he can provide much needed clarity and reassurance on the other points I've raised today. And welcome to his new position. I'm sure he's going to do fantastically. Thank you.
Big Witherden.
啱啱紫色衫嘅 MP 咧就係 Salford 嘅工黨 MP Rebecca Long Bailey， 咁佢就首先提到就 skilled workers， 即係技術勞工嚟到英國工作，咁又有交稅啦，有做義工啦，亦都係有支持英國經濟啦，咁咪希望政府去講清楚究竟邊一啲人先至係屬於叫做 high value skilled sector， 咁啊邊一啲有豁免咧咁佢亦都特別提到香港人佢話 proud of 香港人嘅社群啦，佢哋有支持要支援嘅人啦，同時間就話 BNO 簽證咧係英國嘅歷史同埋道德責任所以咧就係要求 BNO 簽證咧係豁免於工黨提出嘅移民白皮書裏邊係延長 ILR 到10+1嘅呢個部分。
Financial insecurity. The extension also prolongs the time families are forced to live with no recourse to public funds. Children in such households are significantly greater at risk of poverty and deep poverty, impacting their health and educational outcomes and creating long-term effects that will harm our society and economy for years to come. We've recently witnessed a rise in anti-migrant rhetoric and assaults on asylum accommodation, home to many families and children. At a time when far-right groups are exploiting fear, weaponizing misinformation, and stoking division, our government should be pushing back firmly and proudly, not forcing some of the most vulnerable in our society to live in limbo for a decade. What we need are shorter, more affordable routes to settlement, not simply because it's the right thing to do, but because it strengthens our communities, supports our economy, and ensures children can grow up safe, secure, and with hope for the future. The proposals outlined in the white paper directly undermine the government's own aims of tackling child poverty, raising living standards, and growing the economy. I urge the Minister to consult directly with those already on the 10-year route and to undertake a full equalities impact assessment before proceeding any further with these damaging proposals. Diolch yn fawr.
Dr. Rupa Huck.
That genuinely world-beating UK universities are. They generate billions of exports. They are central to UK soft power and global relationships. But almost everyone faces financial challenges. So they've had to diversify income streams, cross-subsidise their work, and attracting globally excellent researchers and international student fee income has helped them just about manage. Ex-colleagues of mine are closing down degrees reluctantly. Whole institutions face going bust. So with competitiveness and growth at the heart of the government's missions, if the UK makes it too onerous, our universities will lose talent and market share to Canada, Australia, the US. In fact, settler status is 5 years in most of the rest of Europe. So unwittingly, we are advantaging our rivals. At Imperial College's White City Innovation Incubator, I saw many international postgrads pioneering scientific and technological advances, some on the 2-year post-study work visa, which is also being cut. The UK HE sector's teaching, research and innovation activities benefit our economy to the tune of 265 billion, but 14 years of chronic underfunding, and now potentially another blow here, impacting our constituents, students, staff, and those young from lower income backgrounds who are always typically more debt averse will be put off entering HE at all. PwC found UK universities expect to increasingly rely on international student fees, and they're vulnerable to reductions in numbers, and that is pre-white paper. In fact, this isn't just all hypothetical. In many cases, we're already seeing the UK's declining attractiveness. So 2024 Home Office figures show a 19% decline in student visas than the year before because of the rules to stop bringing family. Universities have a vital part to play in growth and productivity across the UK, but we could be sleepwalking into the perfect storm. Straitened circumstances, decreasing international competitiveness, increasing expenditure, putting universities under more and more pressure. So we do need to be honest about trade-offs involved in reducing immigration and of culture wars, when what I'm talking about is a million miles away from illegal boat migrants living it up in hotels and sapping resources from locals. So a skilled talent pathway Hong Kong BNO person from Ealing who contacted me says of her circle, we have paid visa application fees, health surcharge, income tax, NI, roughly amounting to £60,000 per person over 5 years. Additional spending in the UK economy, rent, council tax, consumer purchases, education and childcare, payments made in good faith under a policy we trusted would remain consistent for those already on the pathway. So Jeremy, in fact, Mark Pritchard, not Sir Jeremy anymore. Much of what is proposed in this white paper is welcome and sensible, but not moving the goalposts for those already in the system, not trashing solemn promises that we made to them, and linked to considerations of immigration and universities. We must put work, vocational education, further education provision, what universities are for, and their role in levelling up and all these sort of things. We need a realistic strategy for the long-term financial sustainability and their role in regeneration and growth. It's a graphic equaliser, really. So this is only a white paper. I hope ministers can take our points into account. Let's keep to our word, and let's keep the British higher education sector the envy of the world.
To Scott Arthur.
嗱，而家各位 MPs 咧，亦都係繼續去輪流發言啦。咁啊，將會係記錄在案嘅。咁啊，今次嘅辯論其實亦都即係 draw 到唔少人去關注，其實英國嘅移民政策佢點樣走啦。咁而特別今次咧，係喺香港 BNO 嘅部分咧，亦都再次引起即係對於香港人嘅關注啦。而香港人其實有 MP 都提到啦，香港人其實有好高嘅學歷啦。俾咗呢個 visa fee 啊，俾 IHS 啊，入息稅啊 ，NI 啊，council tax 啊，其實貢獻係非常之多。咁啊，亦都冇拎任何福利啦。咁而家香港人咧已經去到準備 ILR 嘅階段啦，所以咧佢就希望英國嘅政府嘅政策係一致性，而唔係任搬龍門。咁當然啦，而家係即係個 MP 就提到就係而家只係白皮書啦，希望政府咧係採納到各位 MP 嘅意見。嗱 ，MP 嘅發言咧，最終對於政府嘅嗰個 final decision 有幾大影響咧？有幾咁大嘅作用咧？暫時都唔知道。咁而家工黨政府究竟幾時提出白皮書嘅細節咧，亦都唔清楚。亦都冇公開講究竟諮詢有冇咧都唔知嘅。不過今日嘅呢個辯論咧，最少大家見到唔少 MP 都非常願意係為 BNO 香港人發聲。咁啊，包括就係有 Richmond 啦、Sutton 啦、Salford 啦、Milton Keynes 啦、Harrow 啦等等嘅。咁亦都證明咗，但係咩咧？大家喺過去呢段時間裏邊去信 MPs 去 email。MPs 咧係有用，而大家作為英國居民去發聲咧，就算香港人嘅 community 係一個 minority，但係都係有一定嘅影響力。 咁而如果喺呢一個辯論裏邊你見唔到你即係代表你嘅選區嘅 MP 發言咧，都唔好失望嚇，即係一定要去繼續去鞭策你所屬選區嘅 MP。好啦，今日9月8號嘅第二節新聞室關於呢個 BNO 5+1嘅辯論咧，去到呢度啦。我哋新聞室聽日再見，拜拜。